Howdy y'all, welcome to the Booth Western Art Museum's Facebook page and also the Booth Western Art Museum. My name is Lynette, I'm the Education Outreach Coordinator at the booth, and I'm so excited to have y'all join me again for another live art lesson. I'm in our AV studio today, which is why we have this nice green screen that we're not using. But I'm so excited because today, what we are drawing is something that I've been saving this one. This is something that I love to draw, and I just love, obviously it's an animal, but we are drawing a Texas Longhorn cattle today. So I'm really excited about this just because I love cows. They're just super cute and they're incredible. But we wouldn't have cowboys without like the Texas Longhorns. So it's very important to Western history to talk about as an animal just because of the wide implication it has to history. So for our art lesson today, you don't need any fancy supplies. I've brought my stuff from home to use for our lesson today. Let's see what else. But all you need is like a piece of paper and a pencil. I have things to color mine because I love using color, crayons, color pencils, markers, whatever you've got. Yours does not have to look exactly like mine, and I'm gonna tell y'all that we're gonna talk about it in a minute, but Texas Longhorn, their patterns are super different. Like, they have lots of different kinds of patches and patterns and colors. So yours does not have to look exactly like mine. I'm even gonna draw mine differently than I did here because I wanna show y'all that I wanna take some risks and be creative and try new things. And then also just to enjoy, have a good time. There we go. All right. The comments don't show up when I start recording, but now they're here. Okay. So, but also just to have fun. This is for practice. The more we practice, the better we get at drawing and crafting. So without further ado, I will flip my camera over so you can see the table in front of me. And I'm going to show you some art pieces that we have from the booth collection. So you're going to get a nice shot of our really gorgeous ceiling we have in here in the AV studio. Okay. Let's get this camera set up here. Looks good. Okay, so we have, and you know what's funny? I brought some pictures of Longhorn cattle that we have in our collection, but we have even more than I actually printed out pictures of. There's so many artworks of Longhorn cattle in our collection, so I encourage you to come to the museum at some point and take a look because there's so many of them. But here, let me show you this one. This is a sculpture that I really love. It just has some really amazing detail in it. But Texas Longhorn are descendants from some of the oldest breeds of cattle in the U.S. that were introduced by the Spanish. And they're known for their distinctive horns, which are used to protect themselves in the wild, and they can span from like one tip of the horn to the other. They can be up to 6 feet long and sometimes over 8 feet, which is crazy because I'm like 5'4". They're like longer than I am, which is crazy. I even looked up that there is a Longhorn, her name is Cha-Ching, and she is the longest recorded horn length, so like from one end to the other, it's 11 feet. That's crazy huge. So these are huge. And they are, these are the cattle that cowboys would, take on the trailheads to go up to Kansas, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, to make into some beef. I have lots of, one thing I really enjoy, I love this piece by Lauren Entz, but I just love a good little baby cow. It's so cute. Got a couple of other little baby cows in these pieces as well. But they are actually some of the most spectacularly colored of all cattle, coming in virtually every color pattern. Most of them come in, I think this piece is a good example of kind of the color that they are. They're kind of this reddish brown with like these like off-white splooches. A lot of these have white heads, but you can even see this one has got like a little patch on the eye. So they mostly come in these colors, but like this reddish with the white with kind of some patterns, but they also come in, black and other forms of dark brown, or maybe they can be all white. So whenever you are creating your drawing, you don't have to create yours in the same pattern that I did on my drawing. You can make yours in any variety of pattern that you would like, because that's how they come. And then Longhorn, they also eat a wide variety of grasses, plants, and weeds, more than other cattle breeds, which is, I think, why the cowboys like to use them on their trailheads. So I'm going to move these artworks aside. I'm going to keep the baby cow close by because I want to look at it. I love them. And then we're going to get started with our drawing. Oh my goodness. I knew this was going to happen because I'm in a rolly chair. Gotta re-put this back. Oh, good. Okay. There we go. Didn't bonk y'all this time. Okay. So the first thing that you're going to want to draw with your Longhorn cattle, I would start with the head, because then that'll kind of tell you where your horns are going to go and then where the rest of the body is going to go. Now, you don't want your head to be all the way on the edge of the paper, because then your horn might go off the page, which is fine, because if you want to do a horn with a cow with really long horns, you'll need all that extra space. But I'm going to kind of put mine over here. So basically, you do kind of like a small hill for like the top of the head. And then you're going to draw 2 straight lines down here. And then you are going, I bonked it again. I'm going to get the hang of it, guys, I promise. All right. So there we go. So we've got the 2 lines. And now you're just going to kind of create like a smiley face to connect the 2 lines, which is going to create the head of your cow. Now, before I start drawing the eyes and everything else, I'm going to draw, sorry, I'm trying to make sure that the chair is good here. Okay, so I'm going to draw the body first, so that if I need to move the head, then I don't have to erase like the eyes and the nose and everything that I've already drawn. So I'm going to draw the body next, which I would start where where kind of this corner is right here on the top of the head. And I'm just going to go straight across, make a straight line, and then you're going to kind of curve it down here to make your cow's rump where the tail's going to go. And then I'm going to do another line here. So you kind of do a line like if you were cutting the head in half, kind of right here in the middle. And then you're going to make like a curved line where the cattle's chest is. Here we go. Okay. So now, one thing you can do even is connect this line, go all the way across. And then when we add our legs, you can kind of erase these. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to draw, it's basically a rectangle. So like a very skinny, narrow rectangle, kind of going down at an angle. And then it's going to kind of go out at the top. And then I'm going to erase this line to show that the leg is in front here. And then I'm going to draw another leg right here so that that one's like behind the other one. Perfect. And then you can create another, like a straight line here at the bottom to show where the hooves are. Now for this back leg, I'm just going to basically, this line here, I'm going to continue it down. It's going to be, these are all kind of diagonal lines, but I'm going to create a line here. I'm going to go up at the same, kind of the same angle as this one, but then I'm going to taper out here, like that. Then I'm going to erase this, show that it's in front, and then I'm going to draw another leg back here to show that it's behind. Perfect. Oh, it looks so good. Okay, so now we're going to draw lines here for the hooves, and then we're going to draw a tail in the back. So basically I just did like a narrow line, and then this is almost like a leaf or like a teardrop shape right there. Excellent. Here we go. All right, so now I'm going to draw the horns. Now the thing with the horns, let me show you, like in this sculpture, you can kind of see they usually will go kind of straight out, and then kind of curve up. These, my horns on my example drawing are a little bit more kind of flat and narrow, but you can make these, I'll go kind of crazy on mine. So let's see, let's start straight. So the horns kind of come out from the head like this. You're gonna create 2 lines like that. And then I'm gonna create like a big curve for this horn. All right, so I'm just doing like a big curved line. And then this is the point of the horn, so I can start at that point and kind of start narrow and then get big as you go back towards the head. It looks crazy. It reminds me of like a yak or a ram or something, but that's okay, I'm gonna leave it. And then this one, I made it kind of close to the edge of the page here. You know what, I'm gonna have my horn go off the page, which, here we go, is if you left enough room, you might be able to fit the whole horn on here, but I didn't, and I'm okay with that, so I'm gonna leave it. And then I'm just gonna kind of, there we go. I think I'm mostly on there. Ooh, it's very crooked from the other one. But I'm gonna leave it. Because I'm sure that there are plenty of Longhorn cattle where their horns don't look exactly the same on both sides. So I'm gonna leave it kind of wonky like this. And then under your horns, you're gonna wanna give your cows some ears so they can hear. And then you're going to want to give them a nose. Oh my gosh, of course. Usually I draw kind of like a rounded square, and then you can create some curved lines on the side here for nostrils. And then for my eyes, I didn't do anything crazy. I basically did like small, I don't know how to describe this shape. It's like kind of a hill. And then you're gonna create some circles here for the eyes. There we go. All right, so other things you'll want to think about is where your cattle is. Here I did it in like a nice field of grass, but you could put yours wherever. I think I'm gonna do mine in grass, but maybe I'll make it like yellow, like almost wheat field-esque. Okay, so I'm just gonna draw a straight line back here, and then I'll go ahead and draw some clouds in the sky. Since my other one I did a big giant sun, I'll do some clouds in this one. All right. And then another tip I have. So on mine, I think adding all of these crazy squiggly patterns is great. On mine, I actually didn't draw, I don't think I drew these in pencil first. I think whenever I was drawing with marker, I just started using marker to draw all of these lines. So if you wanted to, I'll go ahead and do that so you can get an idea of what that would look like. But basically what I'm saying is you don't have to draw where you want your squiggly lines to go. Your pattern, excuse me. You could do that with the color. You don't have to necessarily do it with pencil, you can do it with color. I'll do it a little bit with pencil just so you get an idea. But for drawing the pattern, you don't have to think about this too much. We'll give this cow a little kind of stripe down the middle. And then I'm just gonna draw some squiggles, and then you'll want some big squiggles and some small squiggles all over your cow. And there we go. And then you could even do one around another one. It kind of looks like an egg. Okay, do a couple on the legs. And there you go. That's it. That's all you gotta do. You don't even, that's the thing is, I don't want you to think about the pattern too much, because however you do it, it's gonna look awesome, but it doesn't have to be too complicated. Okay, so I'm going to take my Sharpie and do a little bit of outlining on my cow so that you can kind of get, an idea of some, it's always for clarity, because I feel like the pencil does really well, but with the Sharpie, just makes it more clear to see all of the nice pencil lines that I drew. Okay, so While I'm coloring this, I was going to tell y'all a little bit about Texas Longhorn, because like I was saying, they're very important to the cattle industry and what made it so successful during the late 1800s. So basically, the cattle population, so the amount of cattle that there were in the country, grew to an unmanageable size because during the Civil War, lots of ranchers went to go fight in the war and then left their cattle just kind of out. They just kind of left them to fend for themselves, and fend they did, and they just grew and grew and grew. And part of why they were able to grow and take up so much area was also because after the Civil War, there were lots of hunters and who were basically hunting bison, which we drew a couple of weeks ago, and the bison almost went extinct during the late 1800s because so many of them were hunted. And that made space for Longhorn cattle to come in and basically grow. Now after the war, let's see, there was a really high demand. So out east, a lot of people really wanted beef. They wanted some meat after the war, and there was a ton of it out west. So basically, cowboys came in, and they would guide cows up to trailheads, which is where the railroads were. So here, I'll kind of show you my map really quick. So there weren't lots of railroads. Kind of down here in Texas was where a lot of the cows were at the time. There weren't lots of railroads down here. So what they would have to do is cowboys would guide the cattle kind of up here in like Kansas and other areas to where there was a railroad. And then the railroads, they would load the cows up there and then send them out east. So those trails that they would take were called, they were the cattle drives. But these cattle trails, some of them became very, very famous. Let me see if I was missing anything else that I wanted to talk about. So part of this, though, these trails that would take cattle out west, this became a huge market for the American economy, and this is it really turned into American culture because that's where, you know, cowboys became super famous and popular, was from this time of taking cattle on cattle drives. Now, there was a really famous trail called the Chisholm Trail, which was used by millions of cows to go from Texas to Kansas. And it was originally a trade route used by Jesse Chisholm, who was a merchant that would take goods to trading posts along the trail, which ran from north to south. So basically it would go from Texas kind of up to Kansas in that direction. And people knew his trail was very safe and easy to travel, which is why lots of the cowboys started using it later on. And one thing I thought was interesting about Jesse Chisholm was that he was actually half Cherokee and served as an interpreter and translator for many tribes. And I heard that he knew like over a dozen languages, which is crazy. That's a lot of languages. And he died before the cattle trails could really pick off, so he didn't really get to see his trail, being used to the capacity that it was. So yeah, okay, here. So I've only got a couple more patches left. One thing I also wanted to mention as far as the cowboys goes was that, which I may have mentioned when we talked in our cowboy hat lesson, but a lot of times when we think of cowboys, we think of, honestly, I think of a lot of, let me find like a picture, like, oh, it's right in front of me, kind of this kind of image of a cowboy, like, like a white man who is like, coming out west for new opportunities. But there were lots of people came out west to take part in the cattle drive. I talked about the vaqueros from Mexico made up a big population of cowboys, but also there were a lot of black cowboys during that time. The cattle drives really took off after the Civil War, and lots of slaves who were freed after the war started moving out west to look for new opportunities and basically a place to start fresh. And about 1 in every 4 or 5 cowboys was black, which I think is just incredible. Okay, so now that I've outlined, let's see, I'm actually gonna color in my hooves right here. How are we doing on time? We are great. We're doing so good on time. Okay. Here we go. All right. So now I am going to go in with some color. And the last time that I did this, I actually used, let me show you. I had to go in and grab some of my fancier like Prismacolor markers because I wanted to find some that were like the right shade of brown. But I think this time I'm gonna go in with crayon because I know I have a lot of nice brown crayons. Let's see. So let's go ahead and find some of these brown ones in here. Let's see. There we go. Here we go. Okay, there's like an orange one. There's like a copper one. Let's see what else we got. Here's a dark brown one. Just grab orange just to have it. Let's see. That seems good. Okay, so got a nice variety of browns here. I think I'm gonna start by using this one because it's like a nice, what is it, burnt orange. All right, so it's kind of like an orangey brown. And I'm just gonna start coloring in some of these blotches. I'm gonna go ahead and color in this part. So you can see this one is much more orange than the last one I drew, which is okay. I'm gonna make the ears orange. And then, oh, I remember I had a good tip last time. So if you have like, this is like an apricot or like a peachy color, kind of like a light tan color, you can always use these to go in and color in some of these light patches. Because I felt like when I was coloring it, it almost looked too white, like the paper was too white. And I know that not all cattle are like pure white. There's a lot of them that are kind of, you know, they're out there on the plains, they're a little dirty. So there we go. So if you want to add something like that, you absolutely can, which is probably what I will do later on. Okay, so where was my burnt orange? Here we go. All right. So I also just did want to mention a couple of, if you really want to look into the history of black cowboys, there are some really amazing figures in that group. Like Bill Pickett, I think, is probably the most famous, but you also have Henry Clay and Nat Love, which I didn't have time to research. But I know there are really excellent articles on the Smithsonian where you can learn about these guys. Go. All right. Oh yeah, so I also wanted to just talk about, because we're talking about animals, I wanted to bring in some science facts in with this lesson. But you know, there are different ways that scientists will classify animals so that they are, you know, more easily organized. And I just kind of want to go over how cattle are categorized using like a scientific classification. So cows in the broad spectrum are an animal, so that puts them in the animal kingdom. And then animals are sorted between vertebrates and invertebrates, which are basically animals with or without backbones. Animals without backbones are like insects, which would be invertebrates. But a cow is a vertebrate, so that just means it does indeed have a backbone. And then cows are also further classified as a mammal, as opposed to things that are not mammals would be like fish, amphibians, reptiles, and birds. And mammals are, they are usually warm-blooded, they have lungs to breathe, they have hair or fur, They nurse their young with milk, and then they also give birth to live offspring. And then, so you got mammals. The next classification would then be bovines, which I have heard of that word before, and I'm sure you have too, but bovine just means that it, you know, is relating to cows. So these are usually animals medium to large that have like hooves, and that includes cattle, bison, yak, and antelope, which makes sense because I was talking about bison, how they kind of moved into the bison's land, and that's probably because they're in the same family, and so they eat very similar things. They eat grass and weeds and stuff. Okay, I'm going in with the light tan now. And yeah, and then Texas Longhorn are even like another kind of subset, a species of cow, because there's lots of different kinds of cows. You have the black and white ones that I think are typically dairy cows. And then you have some that are used as like meat cows. But yeah, okay, let's see. All right, I'm going to finish drawing some of this tan color, and then I think I'm actually going to go in with like a darker brown. Here we go. Perfect, it's good enough. Oh yeah, here, let me get, do I have a pink crayon? Here it is, okay. I'm gonna give my cattle a pink nose. Okay, so one thing you can do, which I think I've talked about in other videos, but you can layer brown on top of brown. Like, because I know sometimes it's like, oh, you know, this piece has a lot of brown in it, and it might be kind of boring, but you can use, so I basically used orange, and then you can go back on top of the orange with kind of, I'm using like a darker brown. It's broken in half and sad. But you can use this to kind of give your artwork a little more depth, to make it look like it's not just all one shade of brown, that it maybe looks like it's a few different shades of brown, going from light to dark. There we go. And I hope you've also experimented with trying to do some weird sorts of color combinations and styles with the fur on your back, on your cattle's back. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. There we go. I like this. I like how it looks. You know, one thing I'm actually gonna do for fun, I'm gonna make this yellow. Lean into my egg patch here. Okay, so one last thing I'm gonna mention before I have to skedaddle is whenever you're coloring your horns, I colored mine using kind of the same like off-white color I used for the rest of the cow. But if you want to give it a little texture, I used a little bit of stippling on here with my Sharpie, which just means that I kind of went up and down on the Sharpie, basically tapping the tip of the Sharpie to create little dots all throughout. You don't want to like bang on it super hard, because I also don't want to ruin my Sharpie, but just some little taps gives it a little bit of texture. And then, I think it's dry, you can go on top with like a crayon or a marker, and there you go. Excellent. I may add a little bit of more shading to mine too, just because I want to be fancy. Okie dokie, so I'm gonna leave off my drawing here, and I'm gonna flip my camera around really quick so I can talk to y'all for a second before I skedaddle. Boop. Oh my goodness. I also just remembered I pretty much forget this every week because I am so bad at remembering to write my name on things. So I also generally forget, because I always say like, well, I'm not finished yet, so I forget. But the truth is, even when I am finished, I forget to write my name on it. So you want people to remember that this is yours, that you made this. I'm proud of my egg cow, okay? I'm proud of them, and I want people to know I drew this. So I'm gonna go ahead and write my name on it while I'm talking to y'all, so you will bear witness. There we go. Perfect. Incredible. See, it only takes 2 seconds and I forget it every time. I would love to see if you drew cattle, because as I mentioned, I love cattle, and also these Texas Longhorns because they have such cool horns. I would love to see how yours turned out. So you can always share them, basically any form of social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can use our hashtag #BoothMuseum and share them with us so we can see them. You can also post them as comments, but however you send it to us, we'll see it. And I love seeing all the creative ways and things that y'all draw each week. Now, let's see. I'm looking for the date because I also forget that every time. So I will be here again next week on Tuesday, June 23rd, the same time, 10:45, same place, the booth, Western Art Museum's Facebook page, and also you can watch it before, or not before, but after, anytime. Also, just so y'all know, the museum is open to members. So if you are a member of the museum, you can go to our website to see some of our procedures and how to sign up for a time ticket to come and visit. And we would love to see you. We're so excited to have people back in the space. And then the museum will be open to the general public next week, or on this Saturday, June 20th. So it's coming up soon for everybody to come back to the museum. So thank y'all so much for joining me and the Booth Western Art Museum as we work to share America's story. And I can't wait to see y'all next week. Have a good one. Bye.